We have an outage. The elevator is down, which...
Thank you guys for coming out to the Next Hope. Quickly about myself, my name is Lazlow. I had a syndicated radio feature for 12 years called The Technophile that was syndicated around the world. I was a writer and journalist. I wrote for magazines such as Playboy and High Times, which contain some of my favorite things. And I taught at the University of Missouri School of Journalism. I've also worked on a lot of video games, including Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto, Bully, and the like. What I want to talk about is this battle that we've got right now between content creators and consumers, and how it's threatening journalism, magazines like 2600, as well as interactive companies in this online landscape that is now expecting everything for free. So let's talk about the history of the internet. Most people were on the internet starting 15 years ago when they thought AOL was the internet. But let's go back to the roaring 90s. Wow, the launch parties were amazing. And for those of you that were here in New York, Silicon Alley was like our Studio 54. There was a launch party every other night. All of your friends that could close an HTML tag were making six figures and worth $1 million on paper. It was a phenomenal time in that all of a sudden we had all this content online for free. Movies, music, video games, newspapers were all rushing to go online, and all these websites wanted your eyeballs. That was the currency that they were trading in, and of course a lot of them went out of business. But we've got this sort of expectation of the value of content that's affecting a lot of different industries. So I'm going to touch real quickly on sharing. Sharing it's inherent in human nature. We would not be here today if people did not share. Since we're talking about history, let's go back to the roaring 50,000 BC. If these fools hadn't shared, we would not be here today. They shared technology, information about tools, where the antelope are, how to kill them. If there were patent trolls back then, we would be extinct. So, for tens of thousands of years we shared. It ensured our survival as a species. If you were a bit of a shitty farmer one year, hopefully somebody else in the tribe could give you some food to survive the winter. Well, so things have changed since then. We now, instead of working outside, we work in cubicles moving ones and zeros around, but we still have this sort of inclination to share. These days, though, most people don't grow food unless it's in Farmville. But we're all connected to this network. We've got these expectations and this perceived value of content. And in the last 15 years, some idiotic things have happened. We've been involved in this weird battle with industry associations that has made no sense. It is insane that I'm considered a felon for ripping a DVD I own to my iPhone. It's ludicrous. Many of you remember the DECSS case that Emmanuel was involved in. And I was there protesting outside of Miramax's office because it was absolutely ludicrous that printing this code was somehow going to end you up in prison. So we wonder as consumers, how are these trade groups so stupid? Why are they so out of touch? And I can explain it in one word: the penis. The penis makes us dumb. And when a lot of men get together, here's the secret of industry trade groups. They are composed of people that hate each other. Hate each other. If you're in an industry trade group like the Motion Picture Association, you are sitting on a board with other companies that you want to put out of business. You're in a fierce competitive environment. So you get all these company representatives together, and nobody wants to look like a pussy. So somebody says, well, we've got a report here of a grandma who's been uploading some music to the internet. And instead of somebody around the table saying, well, you know, that sounds a little far-fetched, they go, well, we ought to teach her a lesson. And the guy next to him says, oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to seem even more ballsy than Sony. We should go to her house and arrest her. And then the other guy from another company who wants to puff his chest out anymore says, we ought to go over to her house and drag her out in the street and set her ass on fire. And so you have this mob mentality on these associations where people completely lose their sanity. It's sort of like when you get a bunch of frat boys together, the mentality that results there. So it's difficult to have real discussions about sharing and how much content is worth when you've got these clowns that are basically polluting the landscape. So this relationship that we have with content in the internet has created another issue. In a lot of ways, we don't value content anymore. It's ephemeral. It's all over the place. You know, most people on their MP3 player have 10,000 songs. The value has diminished, but who cares about music? Who cares about music? Who cares about video games? The real issue is that journalism is being gutted with this mentality. The Fourth Estate, who is supposed to be keeping tabs on our government and shenanigans from a low-level newspaper in Paducah all the way up to Washington, D.C., is being gutted. Newspapers are shutting down. They are downsizing. They're closing foreign desks. And a lot of people say, well, we've got blogs. Blogs, in a lot of ways, just piggyback on newspaper content. It's some clown linking to a real journalist article and saying, I've got some opinions on this. The weird thing about newspapers right now, and journalism for that matter, it has more reach than ever. James Surowiecki from The New Yorker had a great article about this, and he says the problem with newspapers isn't the internet, it's us. We want access to everything, we want it for free, we want it now. It's a consumer's dream, but it's an unsustainable relationship. Without paid journalists, democracy will continue to head down the path of corporations pillaging our country. And instead of good journalists, in a lot of ways now, we've got blogs and cable TV news. Because we are drunk on commentary. God damn if you can't turn a cable news station on and it's people talking about what they think about a story rather than giving you facts. Who, what, when, where, why, and how have gone out the window. Journalism costs money. So we as a community have to support magazine and newspapers and not throw a tantrum when they ask to be compensated for their work. I love Boing Boing to death. I'm on there all day long. But damn if they don't throw a hissy fit when a newspaper puts their content behind a paywall. I hate paywalls. I think they're horseshit. But 15 years ago, there was a paywall. It was called putting 50 cents in a box and paying that company and those journalists for their work. What we need is some kind of micropayment system where $1 goes into a fund and that money is distributed per day across all the news websites that you visit. So if you only visit 2, each one gets 50 cents. If you visit 1,000, they divvy that up incrementally. And it will mean that journalists can actually get paid for their content, because a lot of people say, well, advertising will pay for journalism. Journalists dependent on advertising are beholden to corporate sponsors. When I had a nationally syndicated radio show and started talking shit about Gateway, you know, I had radio stations calling me saying, we're not running your feature because Gateway runs commercials on our station. And the other thing that you have So great, you've got this model where newspapers and magazines are supported by advertising. Well, what's happened in the last 2 years? Advertising's gone down the crapper. I don't know if you've noticed, but magazines that used to be that thick are now like a fraction of it. And so what happens is major magazines are shutting down, and newspapers as well. There's a big stink going on about Murdoch and the paywalls over in the UK right now, and David Mitchell of The Observer had a great quote. He said, like the bile that is spouted in newspaper website comment sections, this demonstrates a lamentable truth. Many people only really value something they've paid for. It is staggering to me when you read a fantastic article online by a smart journalist, and then right under it, not an inch, is somebody going, Obamacare sucks! How have we allowed this kind of discourse to happen? So what we've got is an unsustainable relationship. We can scream and shout that everything needs to be free, but we've got to figure out how to pay journalists to cover the government, each other. The most watched news station in America is headed by this man. One of my favorite quotes from him is, my first qualification is I didn't go to Columbia Journalism School. Fox News is proud to not hire journalists. Journalists have things like ethics, which really get in the way of stuff. I know it's easy to bash Fox News. I think MSNBC is equally full of garbage. But it's just easier to digest for some reason. You know, Fox is running articles, TV stories right now in Chicago about why the library system should be shut down, and that money can be funneled to the police. Yeah. We're in the middle of a propaganda war, and we're refusing to fund the good guys. So who are the good guys? 2,600. You know, with major magazines going down the toilet, it has affected all publishing, including 2,600. You know, magazine distributors are increasing their cut. It's becoming quite unprofitable in the last couple of years to publish, which means that all of this and this community and the things that we do when we get together and all the cool stuff that we find out at these conferences is in jeopardy because it's bankrolled by the magazine. So I ask all of you to put your money where your mouth is and get a subscription. Don't rely on the newsstand sales. Like, none of that money goes to 2,600. Sign up for a multi-year subscription and just get it over with, and support this community, because if you don't, it's going to go away. And Emmanuel needs money to keep people out of jail. He has busted more fools out of prison. Every time I'm talking to him, he's posting bail for somebody at a protest at the RNC. That's where this money goes, is to protect this community. But this relationship that we have with content is not just affecting journalism and newspapers and democracy. It's affecting other industries. How many of you were big PC gamers? Show of hands. Kind of hard to find PC games these days. A lot of times they're ported from a console, or they come out many months later. One of the reasons is because there's an unsustainable relationship between the PC gaming community and video game creators. And that is, within seconds of a game coming out, it's online for free, and people say, well, you know, I'm not going to pay for it. Mobile games, which I love like crazy, you spend several years making a mobile game, and for every one copy that's purchased, 3 copies are downloaded. So 75% of people enjoying your work are not paying for it. This is an unsustainable relationship. And of course, other industries are affected by this as well. And I say this because this all leads up to a discussion on network neutrality. We've got this 15 to 20 year party that we've been involved in here, where everything's been free for all.